A new storm is developing behind the velvet ropes of love and hip-hop, and insiders can't stop talking about Yandy's violent showdown. But the twist that has everyone reeling, Rasheeda's surprising betrayal. Murmurs are rife. During last week's taping, Rasheeda not only sided with Jessica but publicly degraded Yandy in front of the entire cast. Fans, when startled to hear that Rasheeda supposedly turned her back on the woman she once called sister, provoking yells of "I'm done" that resonated around the soundstage. Emotions ran high as cameras filmed Yandy's collapsing makeup, disheveled voice, cracking fists trembling as she accused Rasheeda of abandoning her for fresh relationships. The family was left divided as friends and crew rushed in to separate the two women, but the harm felt irreversible. Could this be the bombshell that finally forces Yandy to leave the show for good? Or is it just another ratings-driven spectacle? Behind-the-scenes film apparently shows Rasheeda flanked by Jessica's followers yelling, "We stand together," while Yandy storms out in tears tonight. The teaser sprinkles glimmers of angry voices, slam doors, and the raw Rasheeda moves down to deliver a stinging sentence that freezes Yandy in her tracks. Whispers abound about secret recordings and dramatic, off-camera relationships. Stay tuned to see if these claims hold any, and the next season may premiere without its strongest queen. The scene erupted the instant Rasheeda arrived into the rehearsal with her arms crossed and jaw clenched, leaving Yandy gaping. After Rasheeda's shock, speculations circulated around the hallways that she might support Jessica, but no one expected the frost in Rasheeda's voice when she replied, "I can't be a part of this charade anymore," and went away. Yandy's eyes filled with hurt, her meticulously applied makeup pouring down her cheeks as if tracing the lines of betrayal. Surrounding crew members paused mid-setup, unsure whether to assist or pull back and let the storm settle on its own. Fans are surprised to envision the Queen of Poison done so utterly, but at that moment, the family was divided in more ways than ever before, and she stood glued to the spot, her fists clenched at her sides, replaying Rasheeda's remarks. The ambient hum of cameras and mic checks melted into a heavy silence in the corner. Money and Cease exchanged uncomfortable glances, wondering how to soothe the heated tension. Jock approached cautiously, anguish engraved over his face. "Yandy, talk to me," he pushed softly, but Yandy's breath seized in her throat and she shook her head, incredulity oozing into her tone. "She chose her side," she murmured, voice trembling. "She chose Jessica over me." Emotions raced wild as Jock tried to comfort her, his arm a tenuous lifeline in the sea of commotion. The air crackled as Jessica strutted into frame, a triumphant smile flickering on her lips. She sensed Rasheeda's win. Her eyes shone with vindication as she approached Yandy, her footfall echoing like taunts. "Did you truly think you were untouchable?" she inquired, her voice low but fierce. Yandy glared back, wounded pride flashing into anger. She shot back, unreachable. "You're the one who's been playing games." The words shot across the room, and the cameras instinctively started rolling, capturing every flicker of fury that went between them. Behind them, Rasheeda's silhouette darkened. She spoke from the threshold. "Enough of this," she whispered, but her words did not soothe. They stung Yandy, who twisted around with tears spilling out. "Enough? After you stood with her?" Rasheeda's lips pinched into a narrow line. "I stood for what seemed right," she said, her voice stiff. Yandy's eyebrows furrowed. "Do you think this is correct?" she demanded. Rasheeda's gaze wavered. "I think aligning with the truth counts more than devotion to lies," she muttered, turned on her heel and marching away. As Rasheeda withdrew, Jock grasped Yandy's arm and steadied her collapse. "This is ridiculous," he murmured, concern etched in his furrowed brow. Yandy stared at the spot Rasheeda had occupied moments ago, breathing hard. "How could she?" she asked, voice breaking. Jock was caught between soothing his friend and participating in a quarrel. "That was not his fault. People change," he finally said, "but you deserve the truth." His words hit Yandy like a lifeline tossed into a churning sea. She said, her eyes flashing despite the tears. "Then tell me what you know," she hissed, her voice cut with pain. The cameras tracked their whispered argument while the director's voice crackled in the background. "We live in." 5 crew members hurried to reset lights and adjust mix, trying to maintain the facade of a typical shot, but nothing about today felt routine. A hush descended over the audience in the studio chairs, their exhilaration muted by the tension permeating the set. Fans are stunned that a simple lineup rehearsal could turn into such a personal conflict, but here they were, Witnessing the collapse of a sisterhood, Yandy gently pushed Jock aside and squared her shoulders. She lifted her chin, prepared to face Rasheeda one final time in front of cameras. Turning, she strode after her former ally, her words ringing. Down the corridor, "Rasheeda, you owe me an explanation." Rasheeda paused outside a makeup trailer, palm placed against the cool doorframe. She turned slowly. "Explanation," she echoed. Yandy she took a cautious drink of water, her fingers quivering as the cool liquid calmed her throat. "I never thought Rasheeda would side with her," she mumbled. Jock sat on the edge of the chair. "Neither did I," he said, "but you have to remember, she's been under pressure to stay relevant, and Jessica's been whispering doubts in her ear for weeks." Money nodded. "We saw them discussing in the parking lot after rap, and she wasn't happy about the." Sandy's eyes narrowed, and she chose story over friendship, asking. Pain and rage mingled in her tone. Shock sighed. "It's not that simple. She's divided between devotion to you and the dread of being marginalized." The words hung in the air like a tentative ceasefire. Yandy straightened, pulling her hair from her face. "I need to confront her," she whispered determinedly, forcing off the anguish in her voice. Jock stood, offered his arm, saying, "I'll be right there," and Cease fell in beside them as they headed. The corridor lights throw long reflections on the polished floor with each step toward Rasheeda's dressing room, underlining the weight of what is ahead. Fans are surprised at the fortitude it takes to confront infidelity head-on. Emotions run high even before they approach the hefty door. They paused outside Rasheeda's door. Jock rapped lightly. Inside, Rasheeda's muffled voice said, "Come in." The door swung open, and Rasheeda stood framed by the illumination of her vanity lights, eyes red-rimmed, and Money lingered in the corridor, respectful of the private moment. Yandy walked in, her heart hammering. "We need to talk," she murmured, her voice steady. Rasheeda crossed her arms, her lips forced into a rigid line. "We do," she agreed, movement stiff as she moved. For Yandy to sit on the little couch, the space felt claustrophobic and fraught with unspoken words. Jock leaned against the wall, arms folded, and Money perched on the vanity stool. As Cease hovered by close the door, Yandy took a big breath. "I feel cheated," she began. "We established something real over years, and it felt like you erased everything in an instant." Rasheeda's face softened for a while. "I didn't remove it," she whispered quietly. "I just saw you spiral into drama, and I feared it would destroy everything we stood for." Yandy's eyes flared. "So you agreed with Jessica's lies?" she inquired, tone laced with hurt. Rasheeda hesitated. "I sided with what I thought was right," she replied. "Jessica showed me letters you sent to producers talking about forsaking authenticity for ratings. She stated you didn't care about family anymore." Tears welled in Yandy's eyes. "Messages were taken out of context," she protested. "I was releasing irritation, not scheming betrayal." Rasheeda's expression wavered between fury and guilt. "I should have asked you first," she conceded. Jock came forward. "You both know how words can be distorted backstage," he said. "We need clarity before making judgments." Money added gently, "If the truth is what matters, let's hear both sides," Yandy said, wiping her eyes and lowering her voice. "I'm not perfect," she said. "I've pushed limits and sometimes let honest concerns slip into harsh words, but I never tried to upset you." Rasheeda swallowed, voice thick. "Then why did I feel abandoned?" she said. Yandy stood and closed the distance between. They placed a tentative hand on Rasheeda's arm. "Because I let drama distract me from what was important," and she said, "You're my sister." The confession ripped through the room, leaving a fragile silence in its wake, but a tap on the door halted them. The directors, the voice crackled. "We're rolling in 10 minutes. The reminder drummed urgency into their hearts. Yandy and Rasheeda exchanged glances, both knowing their next movements would play out on camera. Jock spoke first. "Let's go through the scene together. Propose that working side by side will remind us of why we started this adventure." Rasheeda nodded slowly. "Sure, but we need an honest pact. No secrets, no alliances outside this room." Yandy flashed a wobbly smile. "I promise," she murmured. Rasheeda's lips curved into a timid grin. "I vow to them." Led Jock back to the set, the passageways narrowing until they walked once more beneath the brilliant studio lights. The crowd clapped as the host welcomed them back, but the applause felt distant, as if a veil. The host planned a special segment tonight to address the speculations and findings that stun fans. The promise of raw honesty and emotions ran high. As the actors prepared to unveil the truth, The cameras rolled and Yandy, Rasheeda, and Jock took their seats around the circular couch. The host opened with a soothing tone, indicating that tensions are high. "Let's start with you, Yandy. What provoked this argument?" Yandy inhaled, steadying herself. "Felt my sister abandoned me," she replied, voice firm despite the shaking beneath me. Rasheeda nodded downcastly. "I believe she was chasing drama at any cost," she remarked. The host turned to Jock. "And you?" he inquired, as the Yandy fled to a secluded area of the set. Pulse pounding, money rushed over concern flooding her features. "You okay?" she muttered. "Andy, you'll shadow Rasheeda on her main storyline today, assisting with every aspect but speaking only when invited. Rasheeda will answer one intimate question about your past live on camera to demonstrate vulnerability." The directive hung in the air like a binding spell. Yandy inhaled and nodded, going down the stage toward Rasheeda, who stood by the clothing rack, script sheets in hand. As they switched to the dressing room scene, Rasheeda's makeup artist tenderly dabbed at her cheeks, wiping traces of tears, while Yandy followed silently, holding Rasheeda's evening gown for her. The sounds were the hiss of steam irons and the rustle of cloth. Cease handed Rasheeda her script, and Rasheeda looked at Yandy with vulnerability in her eyes. "Anything," she replied quietly, voice softer than before. Yandy's gaze dropped as she remembered the long evenings they spent confiding in each other, sharing secrets murmured after rap. She summoned strength and met Rasheeda's gaze. "What is the most difficult thing you've ever forgiven me for?" she asked out. The makeup artist paused mid-wipe, team members froze mid-task, and even Jock held his breath. Rasheeda's lips parted as memories poured over her. "When I found out you shared my personal texts to producers," she confessed softly. Ye flinched, guilt washing over her. "I was hurt and felt betrayed," Rasheeda continued, "but I've forgiven you because I believed in our friendship." Her remarks fell like a balm on Yandy's sensitive heart. Fans are surprised by Rasheeda's honesty. Once the family was no longer split but rather transformed by vulnerability, the director ordered rolling, and the cameras filmed the moment. Rasheeda straightened her voice and repeated her statement. "For the audience, that moment destroyed my trust, but I chose forgiveness since Yandy was like a sister." Tears glittered in her eyes, an unguarded exhibition of emotion rare in stage drama. Yandy nodded, holding back tears of her own. "Thank you," she mumbled, voice thick. Rasheeda flashed a faint wobbly grin as the cameras shifted to Jock, who wiped his own eyes. "That was brave," he murmured softly. It was Yandy's turn to execute her role throughout the afternoon filming. She closely watched Rasheeda while carrying scripts. Fans watched in astonishment as Yandy anticipated every need, providing a modest nod or a soft touch on Rasheeda's arm during a heated dispute. Moment later, Rasheeda's acting faltered. Yandy stepped in with a whispered line suggestion that stabilized her. The director appreciated the smooth while knowing that the gesture has a deeper importance. Emotions ran high as fans observed Yandy's loyalty in action. By the end of the day, the set descended a silence once more. The host returned to your center stage. "You both handled today's tasks with honesty and integrity," she continued, "but true loyalty isn't evaluated in a single day." She opened the final packet herself, pulling out two cards. "Now for the consequences," she stated. "Keep your promise this week by openly apologizing and confessing your anxieties on our social media networks." Yandy and Rasheeda exchanged a determined gaze, each feeling the electrifying weight of public attention. That evening, the group reassembled in the green room for a wrap party. Laughter and discussion buzzed around the supplied tables, but in one corner, Yandy and Rasheeda sat side by side, cups of water in hand. Jock sank into the couch near them. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. Yandy exhaled, nervous. She admitted, I didn't understand how much I needed her until I had to provide for her." Rasheeda nodded, "And I didn't understand how much trust I'd lost until I had to reveal my secrets." They momentarily held hands, a silent pact refreshed. A crew member approached with a tablet. "Your first social challenge comment is live," she said. The three clustered around as tweets scrolled up. Yandy's loyalty task is very touching. Rasheeda's confession was so raw, family drama at its finest. Jock smiled at their reactions. Money and Cease joined them, excitement vibrating. "You're trending." Yandy's lips twisted into a timid smile. "Maybe this struggle is more than drama," she whispered. "Maybe it is healing." The next morning at hair and makeup, Rasheeda found herself the focus of a fresh storyline reconciling with Yandy. Today, I stood behind my sister, while Yandy's tweet of support appeared on a teleprompter behind the camera. Tears began to drop, but Rasheeda calmed herself and turned to meet Yandy's eyes. "I see your loyalty," she said. Yandy nodded. "And I see yours." The cameras caught each flare of genuine emotion is a testimony to the challenge's power. Back on set, Jessica observed from across the studio, arms crossed. Jock noticed her expression darkening. "She's not happy that you two grew closer." He mumbled to Yandy. Yandy glanced over. She never was happy unless she controlled the mayhem. She murmured. Rasheeda grabbed her hand. "Then maybe we'll keep crafting our own story." She added. The words felt like a victory anthem, and the team around them shared proud expressions. Later that day, as the challenge drew down, the host re-emerged. "It's time to reflect," she said, gesturing to a giant screen behind her. "Showing image?" Yandy asked, her voice warm, and Rasheeda's lips curved into a grateful smile. "Resilience," she answered. "She helps us up when we fall." As the camera focused on their clasped hands, Rasheeda's eyes welled up with tears of gratitude rather than grief, an underlying guarantee of solidarity. The host nodded, impressed. "Beautiful," she said. "Now a twist. Jessica will join you for the final question." Jessica strode on stage, heels clicking. She joined the circle with an unreadable expression, and the host read aloud, "Describe a time when you felt closest to each other despite conflict." Jock braced himself as Rasheeda went first, "And Yandy stood by me throughout my mother's health worry," she recounted. "Canceled events flew home with me. Without her, I would have been lost." Yandy's eyes filled with tears. Jessica seemed truly moved. When it was Yandy's time, her countenance softened for a while, and she halted. "I felt closest to Rasheeda when she defended me on social media following Jessica's leak." Rasheeda nodded, her eyes watering. Jessica's stance adjusted, and she gently exhaled. The audience burst in applause once more, and the host smiled brightly. "Truly moving," she remarked. Converted disagreement into connection. As they departed the stage, the crew was buzzing with joy. Money and Cease ran to greet them. Jock swept in for group hugs, the warmth of triumph setting in. Fans are surprised by how swiftly antagonism gave way to alliance and emotions ran high. At the